Thank you for joining me for this Vernal Equinox 2024 rune reading, covering the period from the 21st of March until the end of April. The period that the Vernal Equinox is also known as Ostara, which I think is lovely. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now, so that we will be able to see the runes that I have chosen. Here we are. Let's just sort this out into place, and it's all ready to roll. So this time the runes were quite interesting, although I will say every reading that I do is interesting. Some are surprising, and this one is a little bit surprising because, considering everything that is going on around us, I feel it is a little bit more positive than I would have expected. So there is encouragement here that we can perhaps take more positives from this time period collectively. In this kind of reading, I am always looking at dominant themes, which, you know, would also happen in the reading for an individual. But it's the dominant themes that affect a lot of people, principally the people that would be probably most closely associated would obviously be those, you know, in the West. The themes, particularly in Northern and Northwest Europe, my homeland, is also usually strongly featuring. So to come back to the runes, we have Thorazaz, which on the left, which is a powerful rune. It's often described as a giant energy, a strong energy, and it's in its most positive position, although all of the positions have some positives and many have some negatives, depending on how we view it, of course, because we don't all view positive and negative in exactly the same way, although some things, of course, we do. So to come back to this rune in its upright position, it's a powerful energy. It speaks very much of the barriers and the boundaries. And when it arises, it is kind of giving us a prompt to look at these, to look at that which is useful, that which is developing and perhaps we haven't given due consideration to, and also the barriers and boundaries that we have, also sometimes in the forms of habits that, you know, things are done a certain way in a certain society because we've always done them that way, or we have in living memory and we have never questioned it. That's what I mean by a habit when the theme is general. And we know that sometimes reappraisal is very useful because we can look at, well, does that actually serve any purpose? Do we have to do it that way? Could it be done in a different way? And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the organisation for the local tennis club or, you know, big things, big organisations that are happening, that are going on in the world, much larger scale things. The question that is raised, is this useful? Is this serving us? And conversely, the question of how does this affect the, you know, the rights that we have when change is happening? We need to consider all of the angles. And it is, this rune also brings us a reminder that we do sometimes need to stand up for the things that we hold dear, that are important for us. And it may be that they're not coming under attack. It can just be that they're not being considered enough. And it's important to see that this isn't always about hostility. It can feel hostile when maybe life seems to act on us, or changes that come up are not so user-friendly. Of course, it can feel a bit hostile, And, you know, sometimes people's needs have been pushed aside in a callous way, and other times it's just lack of due consideration. But what this is saying is all of these things are coming up for us to look at, and it's good to look at them individually, in groups, collectively. The whole thing is just coming up for examination, but we shouldn't view that overall in a negative way. We should view it in a positive way, because there is always the option of creating something better. And again, creating something better, the positive act of creating will only actually happen if we look at it, if we do something, because otherwise we are drifting with the tide, which can be nice, useful and lovely sometimes. But when this rune shows up, a more proactive kind of consideration can be more useful. Now, the rune in the center, Avaz, also known as Ica or Acre, depending how you want to pronounce it, has come in its reversed position. And this is not in itself negative. It just tells a certain story that actually fits very well with the appearance of Thorisaz and the comments and the meanings that I have made concerning that. Because when we look at Avaz in this position, it's also looking at what is not working well, what needs to come apart so that something better can take its place. Now, sometimes when this rune shows up, a partnership can be anything that we literally have to coexist with, that we are in partnership with. So, for example, we have a partnership in a way with the local council, because we pay them a certain amount of money to look after us. And, you know, we have to kind of consider whether we're getting our money's worth, whether we like what is happening. And from the perspective of the council, they also have to look at what can be funded. And I've used this analogy because this issue of councils going bankrupt seems to be getting more and more prevalent within the UK. But we each have a partnership with our employer, if we have one. We have a partnership with those that we share a home with, whether they are, you know, whether that is a romantic partner, a husband or a wife, a family member, flatmates, or even just the partnership that we have with a landlord if we rent our property. There are all sorts of partnerships. And what this rune is saying in this context is that the nature of those partnerships and what is given and what is received, and the balance between that. And remember, the equinox, the spring equinox, is all about balance. And so this also invites us to look at those things that are not working, because they are out of balance. And sometimes, of course, something has had its day and it needs to disappear completely to be replaced by something totally different. Other times, something that hasn't been working very well can just be put on a different foundation, a few tweaks here and there, and it's ready to go again. That often happens. But for example, this rune would often show up in an individual reading. Just supposing somebody was on the committee of something that, you know, maybe it would be the badminton club, the cricket club, the archery club, or the art society. And it's not quite been working well for a little while, and this person has a reading. It will quite often show up when there needs to be changes to that committee. And that can be a very positive thing for the group concerned, as well as being something that creates upheaval. And let's face it, many of us are not that great with upheaval. We want change, but we want it to be graceful. We want it in the way we want it, in the time scale we want it. And when this rune shows up, it is very much saying, forget that. Just think of what needs to change and take it from there. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a lovely rune. We've got Wraith, also known as Radar. And this rune is very much similar in meaning to the Wheel of Fortune in tarot. Again, assuming that that tarot card has fallen in its upright and most positive orientation. But what this rune is saying here is, get ready for the wheel to move forwards. Wraith means wheel, and it's the wheel of life in this instance going forwards. So you need to be ready to ride forwards. The other meaning of the word is about riding. And if you imagine in the olden days, when we were getting ready for a journey on horseback, because that, unless we travelled by boat, if we travelled over land and not through a river, this horseback was the way to go. And you imagine you're getting ready to ride. You've got to see what you've got with you, what you want to take with you. You know that the journey will bring some adventures that you could not possibly envision. You don't know exactly what the weather is going to do. You can watch the signs of nature, but you don't know for sure in many lands. And you know roughly the pathway you will take, but you don't know what's going to come up along the way that may perhaps cause you to take a slightly different pathway. When you spot something that can take you towards something even better. And this rune is also saying, expect to journey towards good things, but do not be too fixed in what it is you are looking for, because goodness comes in many packages. And I think that that is a lovely way to look at it when we are setting out on an adventure, and we just know that we want it to be positive. We've got ideas, but those ideas in themselves are able to take us to a place that brings up suggestions as we go every step of the way. Life brings different suggestions, different ideas, and that which looked brilliant 6 months ago does not look so good now. And we can look at a pathway we would like to start on, and we've done, as many checks as we can, and it all looks good, but there might be something slightly different that can come up along the pathway that will take us on a slightly different adventure. And wouldn't it be foolish not to follow a positive pathway that crossed the pathway that we thought we were on? So with this spirit of adventure, I would like to wish you a happy Ostara, Vernal Equinox, or simply a beautiful spring, if the other celebrations hold no meaning for you. We know that we are well within spring now in most of the climates of the Northern Hemisphere, and nature is starting to unfold our wings, and we should uplift ourselves, uplift our thoughts to the sun as it rises on its arc across the sky. Thank you for joining me. I do offer personal readings, either rune readings or mediumship readings, where I bring evidence of survival and messages from your loved ones and friends in spirit. I am not able to guarantee that any one person will necessarily communicate, but very often the people that you would like to hear from will do so. And if you have a personal rune reading, we can also look in more depth at the issues that are most important to you.